late November of 1912, the Rouse Simmons, a 123-foot-long schooner, made its way across Lake Michigan with thousands of Christmas trees on board, headed for the churches and orphanages of Chicago. But little did anybody know that the decades-old vessel would never make it to her destination. All of her 17 crew would lose their lives as the ship was consumed by Lake Michigan. And the Christmas spirit that year would be greatly diminished by this horrible tragedy. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ivan, and join me as we discover the loss of the infamous Christmas tree ship. Before we start this documentary, I would like to thank all of my viewers who have been supporting my channel throughout this year, and I hope to make each video that I do better than the last. So if you are new to my YouTube channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you will never miss any new uploads. And if you haven't seen it already, make sure to go check out my interview with the local news about my YouTube channel. You can check it out by clicking on the link in the top right corner. Now, let's start the documentary. Launched on August 15, 1868 in Milwaukee, the Rouse Simmons was a 123-foot-long schooner named after a Kenosha businessman. Shortly after completion, the Simmons was purchased by lumber magnate Charles Hackley. Soon, she would make almost weekly trips between Chicago and Grand Haven, Michigan, delivering lumber between those two ports. But by the 1890s, there was a growing popularity of decorating pine or evergreen tree for Christmas in America at that time. So the Simmons would also deliver Christmas trees to Chicago in the holiday season. The Simmons was one of roughly 24 schooners that delivered Christmas tree ships to Chicago. Crew of these schooners would even let people on board to choose a tree. For a while, Herman Schooneman was the captain of the Simmons. He was well known for his generosity and kindness. Plus, he would donate Christmas trees to orphanages, churches, and even families that couldn't afford one. And he was always destined to spread Christmas cheer. He even went as far as selling wreaths and garlands made by his wife and daughter. Unfortunately, Captain Schooneman's brother, August Schooneman, was killed while carrying a load of trees to Chicago in November of 1898. None of the crew survived as the 75-foot schooner he was sailing on broke up and foundered. Despite this, Captain Schooneman, and sometimes he was referred to as Captain Santa, continued to deliver Christmas trees to Chicago every holiday season, until 14 years later, when the aging Simmons met her own demise. It's November 22nd, 1912. The Rouse Simmons is just shy of 45 years old. She has just finished loading up with her cargo of 5,000 evergreen trees in Thompson, Michigan. Little did anybody know that this would be the last confirmed time that any of her crew would ever be seen alive again. She sailed out of the harbor and out into Lake Michigan bound for Chicago, a trip she had done many times and one that her crew were well familiar with. Thousands of trees were stacked up to 8 feet above the deck, which would make the ship extremely top-heavy, and the ship was weighed down by the mass of all the trees as well. Some spectators on the shore reported that the ship had so many trees stacked on deck that the ship looked like a floating forest. The Simmons left the harbor as soon as a November gale began to rage over Lake Michigan, and the same storm would sink 3 other ships. At around 3 p.m. the next day, on the 23rd of November, a vessel that was believed to be the Simmons was spotted by a local life-saving station with a distress flag hoisted. A life-saving boat was deployed to reach the schooner, but the weather was so bad that they couldn't reach the ship, and the mysterious vessel disappeared into the storm. The mystery still remains as to whether or not this ship was the Simmons or not, but it was indeed a ship in distress. A few days later, the Simmons was reported overdue in arriving in Chicago. As soon as the Schooneman family received word of the Simmons being late, they immediately knew that the ship was lost with all hands, since they lost another family member 14 years prior. Over the next several months, the remains of Christmas trees from the Simmons began to wash ashore along the Michigan side of the lake. In honor of Captain Schooneman and his crew, the following year, 1913, a large Christmas tree was erected on the lakefront in Chicago. Over 100,000 people attended. His family continued operating the schooner, delivering lumber and evergreen trees to Chicago over the years. Unfortunately, these schooners were showing their age, and were deemed too dangerous to sail on. They were quickly pulled from service and scrapped. And this basically ended the use for Christmas tree ships by the 1920s. Until 2000, when the Coast Guard cutter Mackinac docked in Chicago's Navy Pier to deliver thousands of Christmas trees to the city, in efforts to keep the tradition alive, which they still do to this day. In 1971, the wreck of the Simmons was discovered in about 170 feet of water, sitting upright at the bottom of Lake Michigan. Most of the ship's hull was still intact, and the remains of the thousands of Christmas trees were still in the cargo hold. Although the ship's loss still remains a mystery, since there were no survivors, it is more than likely that she was consumed by the force of the storm. There are other theories for the disaster, but each hypothesis may be difficult to confirm. The story of the Rouse Simmons has been mostly forgotten over the course of the next few decades, but its story is still interesting to learn about, and still lives in the memory of many Chicago citizens today. I hope you all enjoyed this holiday special. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, tap the bell icon, share this video with your friends, and comment below what video you would like to see next. Anyways, take care, and we all wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.